This is gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and here on the channel, we've been kind of monitoring the crisis and how it's affecting the movie theater industry and the movie industry, and it's been very devastating so far. Obviously, basically all movies were shut down, in America, and basically worldwide. You couldn't really go to movies. New movies were being released. We're starting to see things open up a little bit, but there's been a huge change as far as the industry goes. Obviously, Trolls World Tour actually debuted video on demand, $20 a pop, was hugely successful, and it's kind of changing the way that some film executives kind of look at the industry. And here to talk with me about some of the changes that we're seeing and some of the effects that we're seeing is my good friend Nalo. How you doing?
Doing great, Wes, and happy to be back.
Well, I'm glad you could make it. This one, we've been talking about this multiple times here on the channel, but we do have a few things that have changed, kind of recently. But we can't undersell the impact that Trolls World Tour, and who would have thought that a sequel to a pretty okay DreamWorks animation movie would be, kind of driving the future of the entertainment industry as far as movies go.
It's definitely a movie that was not on my radar, so it's kind of works linguistically as some sort of troll event. Either way, it's definitely a watershed moment, as we saw such a dramatic reaction from AMC. And I think a few other theaters tried to pressure them back, saying we're not going to show your movies anymore. Or on the other hand, movie studios are in a tight position and they're finding new ways to get revenue. And for Universal, it worked out great because they were able to keep a much larger percent that they have to share with theaters. So we're at this kind of crossroads right now, and with theaters starting to open up and there might be some Hollywood hits coming out, it's really kind of the time to, zoom in and see how this is going to play out.
Yep. So we've been talking about, trying to open up theaters, the psychological effects as far as customers and things, but there are other mitigating circumstances that are going to really hamper the entertainment industry moving forward. And one of them is apparently insurance costs. Apparently there have been massive amounts of insurance claims as far as halted productions and losses in revenues associated with COVID-19. And there are insurance companies out there right now that are not allowing entertainment movie studios to take out traditional insurance on new productions because they're not sure how much they're going to have to pay out. And they're not sure what's going to happen with COVID moving forward.
For me, this was an extremely interesting aspect and probably one that most people don't think about on a day-to-day. But just how complicated it is to run a production set and how many kinds of workers you'll have on set, unionized workers, blue-collar workers, as well as stunt doubles, for example. And you have all this equipment as well, and you want to make sure, a hurricane doesn't come or, something horrible happens, you need to be insured. And so something did happen. So you have, on the one hand, enormous amounts of payouts having to happen from these insurance people. But on the other hand, they don't know what to do about going forward. So it's in the bar to get insurance for your production has clearly risen, and the path to get greenlit insurance is now much harder. So financing your film is going to be harder, and the margins are going to be smaller. And we even just saw with the Batwoman actress, she left for whatever reason, but she had gotten injured on her set, and that's all covered by insurance. And so now the question is, can insurance cover a virus that we don't have a vaccine for? Can is there going to be a wave 2 where everything's going to shut down again and insurance companies are just setting themselves up for another massive payout? And this just adds a bunch to the mix that we don't usually think about.
Lloyd's of London, the world's largest insurance exchange, they said that they're going to have to pay out up to $4.3 billion to customers, global customers, as a result of coronavirus. And it's also estimated that the insurance industry is going to suffer about $203 billion in losses due to the pandemic. So you can understand how this is happening. But then when you think about it, in order to reopen your productions, most places in the world, you're going to have new medical personnel. You're going to have probably all of your actors and things like that getting tested. Of course, you're going to need extras if you have like a city scene, things like that. And the logistics of keeping everybody safe while being able to maintain your insurance or maybe work around it is just going to be crazy and might actually have even bigger, longer lasting effects than we could have ever imagined.
Large production studios may be able to swallow the pill of these increased costs of procedures or medical staff, as well as higher insurance premiums. But we're seeing that kind of independent films, which I'm a big fan of, are hitting a brick wall here in terms of how to move forward, in that independent production studios won't necessarily be able to afford these kind of new costs. And from the article that we can link, over 1,000 independent film and TV production studios have already filed claims worth over $400 million just from this. And so for them to get insurance claims going forward, it might be out of budget for some more independent films. And so this is just, the effects for this crisis are coming from all different angles. And this is one that probably going to be a big showstopper for many.
Yeah, you can think that a lot of these independent film studios or independent filmmakers might have to align themselves with the really big studios that are probably going to have those insurance policies just to have their people covered. And what's that going to do with, with those projects? Are they going to have to change the vision? Are we going to get less, less of what the director, the artist intended when it came out? There's going to have to be compromises if you want to go and work under someone else's umbrella.
Yeah, so we might see some more acquisitions or bigger businesses getting bigger. And another aspect is production may actually vacate U.S. soil if the costs are too high. And some preliminary countries that were mentioned were New Zealand, Australia, Denmark, and Norway, which have pretty far down on the risk level and have kind of ease of production. But that's going to hurt all the kind of union workers and all the production people who work on set. So we need to find some middle ground where we have the proper insurance for such unknown black swan events, but we're able to keep production where it began.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You wouldn't even think about that being like the enormous deal that it really is, but you could see how that would be really catastrophic to the industry. Now, one of the things that the movie theater industry and movie studios are looking at is an upcoming movie from Christopher Nolan. It's called Tenant. It actually looks really cool, but it is the first big movie that's releasing since COVID-19 shut down all the movie theaters. It's coming out in July. And the rumor is, or the speculation is, that if this movie doesn't, if it delays, or if it's not able to attract an audience, we might not see another big movie until Christmas. Nuts.
Yeah, so this is really kind of the all eyes on test, and it's a double-edged sword for the movie studio in the sense that, they're going to be releasing this with zero competition. So if you want to see a movie, this is going to be the only high bar movie out there. And it's definitely a movie where, even if you have access, you're going to want to see it in IMAX or, pay the extra premium. On the other hand, even if we have this pent up demand and people want to see it, theaters are going to have social distancing and reduced capacity. And so the numbers, even if it is a success, it's not going to be the same kind of success that it was. But we have to see if it, pushes over the line, if it signals that, Wonder Woman 1984, boom, that's going to come out next. Are people actually ready to return or not? And so it's interesting that we have this one single movie that's going to really define how the movie industry moves forward.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate litmus test. But what's kind of weird is Christopher Nolan, he's one of the few directors in Hollywood that can create his own projects. He doesn't have to do franchises. He doesn't have to go with scripts and other people. He gets to do his own stuff. And normally they're rated R and have an adult audience. So the one thing that it's missing is there are literally not going to be any children going to this movie either way. So we still won't know how many parents out there are going to be ready to take their kids to go see Mulan, or maybe some of these or these MCU movies, or some of these Pixar movies that are aimed at a younger audience, a younger demographic, because our parents still going to be ready to take their kids into a movie theater. Are they going to be ready to take them to Disney World? Because I think that decision making is going to be different than a couple that that are dating or they're married but they don't have kids going to see Tenet.
Yeah, it's a really good point that kids technically under 17 and parents are going to be a little bit out of the mix here. And if there's nothing else to really do, like bars and restaurants for adults or people on dates, are they going to want to just get off the couch, go to the movie theater, and come home? Unknown. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be me. On the other hand, Christopher Nolan, he penned an op-ed in the Washington Post kind of saying how important it's going to be for people to get back together, be able to socialize, and how important a movie theater is as an institution. So he clearly very much cares about his work, his craft, and being able to experience it properly. So it's interesting that they're moving forward and they feel passionate about it. But practically speaking, I don't think this is going to be a knock it out of the park success financially.
You know what's crazy is because there won't be any competition. Do you think, and this is just pure speculation, we haven't really talked about, or even I don't even know if there's an article. Do you think that there might be like a 12 screen theater that has Tenant playing on all 12 screens just so they can get show times and maybe get the audience that they would have had to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, it would make a lot of sense. You go to these multiplexes with 12 theaters. There's tons around them for me that they could get the equivalent of one full theater and spread it across 3, and then essentially have, on a normal night, they might be only playing it on 2 or 3 screens anyway. So if they can get the equivalent of full capacity for 3 screens, but spread it across 10, that might work. And actually, you saying that makes it sound a little bit better to me, knowing that, there's tons of empty rooms. So don't worry, you'll be kind of by yourself if you wind up going.
Yeah, because the movie theaters that are opening right now, as far as phase 1, I believe it has to be 25% occupancy. So every other row is empty. And then in the rows that do have people, I think it's 1 or 2 seats in between them. So there's going to be a lot of distancing in the movie theaters until they hit that. I think it's the phase 2 criteria. And then I think they can go up to 50%.
Yeah, but even still, 50%.
Hey, as far as a moviegoer goes, I would always go to matinees on like a Tuesday just to ensure I was the only guy there, because I prefer a movie theater all to myself.
Yeah, so we might get these kind of introverted people who decide to go out and take advantage of empty theaters.
Yeah, it's crazy. If Tenant gets delayed, it's going to cause another domino effect, because then you're going to see Wonder Woman move back. You're going to see probably Black Widow move back, and maybe it'll be another domino effect on the MCU movies and everything. But I have faith in Christopher Nolan as a draw, and I think people are going to return to the movie theaters and see this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a group of people who want to see this. There's definitely pent-up demand. I'm getting tired of not having anything to do. I love a good summer blockbuster, and so I'm hopeful that this is going to be the first signs of things opening back up and people starting to enjoy their summer.
Well, if that's a good sign, here is a very bad sign. They recently did a consumer poll, and surveys showed that 70% of people post-COVID would more likely watch a movie at home for the exact same price than they would in theaters. 17% of those polled were not sure, and only 13% said they were still more likely to watch movies in a theater if they were the same price. Definitely just a monumental shift in the psyche and the thinking of consumers as far as movies.
That too, and it also said that 37% said they plan on attending less than they did in the past, and that's up from 28% in March. So I know this survey only asks about 1,000 people, but they seem to do it quite regularly, so you can get some sense of what consumer sentiment is. And I think the sentiment is, in general, 1 out of 4 Americans or something to that effect are going to still stay home even if they're allowed to go out. And so you can extrapolate, an even larger percent will, take advantage of all these new streaming services. And essentially they got some data too about what people would be willing to pay for a brand new movie. And it looks like people are, willing to pay, as we saw with Trolls.
Yeah, $20 seems like a large price, but if you think about Trolls and what that movie is, if you're taking your kids to the theater, let's say you got 2 kids, 2 parents, it's like $40 experience minimum if you want to get treats and everything. So $20 at home for a family movie like that really isn't that bad if you think about it.
Yeah, and it makes sense with the kind of trend in the sense that movie attendance has been falling for almost 2 decades, and now we have a reason for it to even accelerate. But in parallel, we've been adding more screens, and revenue is going up because ticket prices keep going up. And so here, where I'm at in New York City, a ticket could be $14 or $15, and if you're going with 5 people, it's already 3 times more than $20 to rent it at home.
Yeah, and then you could just bring them back to your apartment, spring for the beer, and everyone has a better experience.
I think between this time period of April and June in 2019, the box office earned $3.4 billion. And during this time period this year, they've earned $100,000. So that is just almost a 99% reduction. And so theaters are hurting, but on the other hand, we did see AMC was able to secure this $500 million in debt, and they're actually not planning on opening, I believe. Someone please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. They said until Thanksgiving, and that this kind of debt offering would allow them to hold over until then. Even if we have this Tenant, it's still that some theaters might not even be available.
And AMC obviously being the largest movie theater in North America, and I believe in the world as far as screens go. So that That is a big number. Speaking of AMC, we didn't really talk about it on the channel. Well, I did talk about it on the channel, but I didn't talk about it with you. But there was a lot of speculation, spiked up their stock prices, that Amazon might be getting into the movie theater industry experience and maybe merging with or acquiring AMC theaters.
Well, it's a really great rumor, whether it's true or not. And I think their stock went up almost over 50% in one day. But as we've been saying, that a kind of sub-trend to look out for is these big tech companies that have tons of cash. They're in a position to capitalize on this crisis for better or for worse. And, you could imagine that your Amazon Prime subscription now comes with free movies. You can go to the movie theater, and maybe that's where they're getting people back to come to the theater because you're like, well, I don't have to worry about the ticket cost. It's already part of my Amazon aspect. Amazon's also interested in acquiring real estate. They already bought Whole Foods. And if they buy this kind of massive movie theater chain, they can actually start to add more sub-data center nodes. So that's kind of an alternative agenda for them as well. So I think it would make sense for Amazon to do this. I'm not sure if I would necessarily enjoy more Amazon everywhere I look, but I think it strategically makes sense.
Well, and there's a lot of things that they could do. There are people that don't use Amazon. Let's say you go to one of these AMC theaters and you get a little code on your ticket to be redeemed, and you get free shipping on Amazon on whatever you want. You go back there, you get a little taste of the Amazon. Oh my goodness, look what I can get shipped for free. Next thing you know, you're a Prime member.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I also saw that one of these, maybe it was even in the Supreme Court, I don't know what kind of court, but they overturned a ruling from the 1920s that said that movie studios could not own theaters. I guess because that was kind of a monopolistic tendency back in the Gilded Age. And so I think that's going to, reset sometime next year. So if you imagine that Amazon owns their own movie theaters, then they start showing Amazon studio produced films only there. They have a monopoly of when it would be released on streaming. They could only show it on Amazon Prime, and they can kind of get this, cycle of lock-in where they have studio, they have streaming, they have the theater. And it could be interesting, could lead to new movie theater experiences and, an increase in attendance if people weren't so worried about the cost of entry.
I do believe that as streaming grows, that it will start to dictate the future and the direction of all of Hollywood and entertainment, whether it be movie theaters, theater chains, movie productions, and things like that. So I think we're just seeing the beginning of it. And I can't even imagine what it's going to look like maybe in 5 years once, Disney Plus hits a 200 million subscribers. Maybe Netflix is up to like 250, 300 million subscribers, and they can really start dictating the future and the direction of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, streaming is definitely going to lead the way, but you could imagine a world where you have the option to go to the Netflix theater or the Amazon theater or even maybe the Apple theater. So we'll see what things look like in the next decade.
Yes, we're getting closer to Demolition Man, prophecies every single week.
Yeah, big tech is here to stay, apparently.
Yes. Every theater is Taco Bell. All right, Nalo, I really appreciate the time and talking about these very interesting subjects.
Yeah, me as well. And I look forward to keeping tabs on them again.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.